bowl eligible once again. Ball State goes into West Point and comes out with a huge victory. We'll talk some bowl chances and take a look at this weekend's game against Toledo. All that and more. Third Down Chirp starts right now.
Ball State SportsLink's Third Down Chirp is delivered by Papa John's. Better ingredients, better pizza. Visit papajohns.com today for more info.
Hello and welcome into this week's episode of Third Down Chirp, delivered by Papa John's. I'm your host, Chris Renkel, and as always, joined by Timmy Fogarty and Pat Boylan. We got pushed back inside the Alumni Center. Hurricane Sandy was not kind to Muncie with a lot of rain and cold weather, but let's talk a little bit about last weekend. What an experience it was to go to a game at West Point, and we saw a little bit of the military academy. It was just a beautiful sight.
Very historic, very scenic, and I think David Schneider said it the best on his Twitter after the game. He said, it's always kind of weird beating Army because it feels like you're playing America, and no one beats America.
Yeah, and guys, the campus is great. I mean, the tradition that surrounds everything up there, and the fact that the stadium's in the mountains, a reservoir right next to it, and the Hudson River, you know, just minutes away, walking is just incredible. So just to get there and see all the tradition was awesome.
But Ball State was all business when they went into West Point. The Cardinals trying to become bowl eligible for the second year in the row.
On a gloomy day in West Point, New York, Ball State taking on the Army Black Knights at the Military Academy. Early on, Keith Wenning to Jamil Smith puts the points on the board for the Cardinals. They go up 7-0. Later, it's Jawan Edwards' turn, runs it in from 3 yards out. Cardinals take a 14-0 lead. Army would finally get on the board. Here's Hayden Tippett, 7 yards into the end zone. He would score for Army, but Ball State would later add a Steven Schott field goal, and they would not look back as Ball State would not trail in this game. But the Ball State defense, they are a big part of that. It's a big hit by Nick Miles on the West Point quarterback. The defense would hold Army to less rushing yards than their average this season. Another field goal from Army. Now Wenning, it's his turn. He's going to find Kevon Maben with the toe touch and roll. That's a first touchdown for the freshman wide receiver. Another Steven Schott field goal, and Ball State comes away victorious with this one, but Army would make it interesting late. Here's a halfback pass. It's going to almost find the end zone, but J.C. Wade at the last minute tips it away, and the Cardinals come out of West Point with a 30-22 win.
Now, it wasn't the prettiest win that Ball State has had this year, but a lot of guys stepped up and played very well. So who do you give your player of the game to?
My player of the game goes to Jawan Edwards, a guy who he came in and had 148 yards rushing, a touchdown, and really, when you look at his average per carry, he absolutely tore it up. I mean, was +6 average per carry, and really never had at one point a carry where he was stopped, you know, for a yard or maybe 2 yards. He came out and had a very good day for Ball State, allowed them to move the ball on the ground, consistently pick up first downs, and if Jawan Edwards, he's going to play like that for most of the games, Ball State's going to have a lot of success.
Well, I thought Edwards played tremendous, but my player of the game is on the defensive side of the ball, and it's Travis Freeman. I mean, the day that he had, you know, I said he was my player to watch. He had to step up and really, you know, bring some energy to this defense against that tricky triple option attack, and he did just that. He had 13 tackles, a forced fumble, and a very interesting stat surrounding Travis Freeman, guys. He, right now, of all the current active players, he leads the country in career tackles at 432. In second place is a guy you might have heard of, Manti Te'o, who a lot of people think could compete for the Heisman. So that just shows you how much that Travis Freeman means to this defense and this Ball State team.
Ball State not the only team getting a big win this weekend as we take a look around the MAC presented by Fox College Sports. Starting with Kent State knocking off Rutgers, the 15th ranked Scarlet Knights. They go into Rutgers and they come out winning 35-23.
Guys, we listened to this game on the radio coming back from West Point. Another great effort from the MAC. 3 games now in the past 2 weeks where the MAC has knocked off an undefeated ranked team.
Well, we knew it was only a matter of time before Ohio slipped up. The 24th ranked Bobcats lose to Miami, Ohio, 23-20.
Well, and Miami has been close in all the games this year. They're winning by 3 points or 6 points in a lot of games. Finally, it comes back to bite them, and they drop one to Miami, Ohio.
As we take an updated look at the current standings, Ball State joins 5 other MAC teams. They now have 6 bowl-eligible teams in the conference. That's second only to the SEC.
And when you look at these standings, Ball State sort of paired up with Bowling Green on the other side. Same records. It's going to be important that the Cardinals, by the end of the year, finish ahead of Bowling Green.
Now, Ball State finds them in the similar situation as last year. They got that critical 6th win with a couple weeks left in the season. Now, last year, we all know they ended up losing the last couple weeks, and they ended 6-6. However, this year, even if they don't get the last couple wins, and I personally think they will get 1 or 2, I still feel like their chances of bowling are going to be pretty good.
I think you're right. I think their chances are pretty good. The chances are pretty good, and for a couple reasons. First of all, they became bowl eligible this past week, a week earlier than they did last year. They did it last year in 10 games. This year it took them 9. But for another reason is when you look around the nation and you look at some of the bowl eligible teams around the nation, there aren't as many this year as there were last year. In fact, some of the second-tier bowls are actually worried that there aren't going to be enough bowl eligible teams for them to have a game. So when you look at that, I think the chances are better. You need 70 teams. There are 70 openings for bowl eligibility. And so if Ball State, even if they're at 6-6, and I'm with you, I think they're going to at least get to 7, but even if they're at 6-6, if there's only 70 bowl eligible teams or less, Ball State guarantees themselves in a bowl game anyway.
Well, and those are some, major factors, Pat, that you just mentioned, but I think one of them is the fact that they knocked off South Florida and Indiana, 2 automatic BCS qualifiers in the first couple weeks of the season. So that really helps their case because last year, as you know, guys, they were 6-6. They beat IU, they lost to South Florida. Now with that win over South Florida, pretty respectable program, that's huge. So I think that their chances of going bowling are very, very good. And they have a very winnable game against Ohio at home and a very winnable game against Miami, Ohio on the road, so they can add up a couple more victories to their resume.
As we take a look at the remaining schedule, just 3 games left in this season: Toledo, Ohio, and Miami, Ohio. All of those winnable, and Ball State looking for at least 1 or 2 more to really assure themselves of going to a bowl game. And if they want to go to a bowl game and get another win, it's going to start with Toledo this weekend against a very good Rockets team at the Glass Bowl. With Pat, you said it's one of the best stadiums in the Mid-American Conference and one of the best teams in the Mid-American Conference with the Toledo Rockets. As we take a look at these 2 teams in our head-to-head segment, starting with the quarterbacks, Terrence Owens and Keith Wenning, 2 of the MAC's best.
Yeah, they are 2 of the MAC's best, and Owens a guy who a couple of years ago beat out Austin Danton, the starter for the job, and Danton's a good quarterback, so you know that Owens is good, and Owens brings another dimension to Toledo. He's mobile, he's quick, he's strong, and he can, make plays happen with his feet when perhaps they aren't open in the air. He's not quite the thrower that Wenning is, but he has some other elements that make him tough to stop.
Well, and Owens isn't exactly, B.J. Daniels style, but like you said, he is very athletic. He can make plays with his feet. He can really confuse defenses of what he's going to do when he rolls out. Is he going to pass the ball? Is he going to run the ball? So he can, can make some problems for Ball State. But Keith Wenning, he's kind of not really struggled, but he just hasn't really thrown the ball as well the last couple weeks. Hopefully he can get it going this week against Toledo.
A very good running back matchup. David Fluellen and Jawan Edwards, 2 guys statistically at the top of the conference.
Yeah, Fluellen statistically is the best running back in the conference, which is so impressive because he wasn't even the go-to back last year as Toledo's top back moved on. Now Fluellen has taken that spot as the top back, and he's been very, very good. It seems these past couple of years Toledo has been really good at churning out running backs. Fluellen's another one of them.
Well, yeah, like you said, Fluellen, a very impressive running back. But how about Jawan Edwards, guys? I mean, such a great 148 yards last week, a touchdown on the ground, just really dominated the whole entire game. So I think this matchup will be one to watch for sure.
And at the wide receiver position, again, I feel like I'm on repeat, but 2 of the top wide receivers in the MAC, Bernard Reedy and Willie Snead.
Statistically, Snead is 1. Statistically, Bernard Reedy is 2. And these are both big play guys. They both try to beat you down the field. Man coverage, both Owens and Wenning is comfortable throwing to them in that situation. So look for both of those guys to try to exploit the defensive backs, try to get big, explosive plays for their offenses.
The Wenning Snead, deep ball combination hasn't really been that big as of the last couple games. So I think that this week they'll really try to take some shots with Willie Snead down the field. I mean, they have to, especially when they put him on that short side like they always do. They're getting a lot of one-on-one coverage with Willie Snead. And I'm sorry, guys, but I will take Willie Snead one-on-one with about any defensive back in the MAC. So this also statistically a tremendous matchup.
And on the defensive side of the ball, Ball State really coming off a very strong performance against Army and Toledo. They've kind of struggled on the defensive side.
They've struggled when it comes to yards. If you look at the statistics with yards, yes, I think struggle is a good word, but more important than yards are the points. And that's what Coach Lembo brought up in his press conference, and he's preaching is that Toledo gives up big chunks of yards, but they play very well in that bend but don't break defense, and they force a lot of turnovers. So Yeah, they give up yards. Ball State statistically likely will have a lot of yards. What's going to be key is punching it in the red zone, keeping turnovers to a minimum.
Well, and if you look at these teams, guys, they are scary similar. I mean, they both do give up a lot of yards, but the last couple weeks, Ball State defense hasn't given up that many points, and Toledo's defense doesn't give up that many points either. So, I mean, this Ball State team, I mean, the defense that they've, from where they came at the beginning of the year to where they are now is night and day. I mean, last week they played that tricky triple option attack and held Army to just 341 yards. Usually they get about 400. So the Ball State defense is coming around just the right time of the season. I'm interested to see how they play this week.
In a very big game this weekend against Toledo, as we have said, not only does Ball State want another win to increase their bowl chances, a win keeps them in the MAC title hunt, and another major step for this Ball State program. The significance of this game, really, to say it's huge is a little cliche, but it is a huge game.
Well, really, when you only play 12 games in a college football season, every game's a huge game just because you don't have a lot of room to go on a losing streak or to make up for potential errors. And whenever it's late in the year and it's a game against a team in your division like Toledo is, that ups the importance. As Coach Lembo likes to call it, it's a championship game. Championship implications still on the line. The Cardinals still have an outside shot at winning the MAC West. And to do that, they've got to go through Toledo. And really, if Ball State can knock off Toledo, then you kind of look at things, well, Toledo still has to play Northern Illinois, so if Northern were to beat Toledo, all of a sudden Ball State could be in a position to hop Toledo in the standings.
Well, in Northern, that's a very, very good team, as we saw when they played here at the Shoe. But you guys, we talked a couple of weeks ago about what it's going to take for Coach Lembo and this staff to take the program to another level. I mean, they knocked off 2 BCS schools, and that's great, but what's it going to take in conference to take them to that next level and be an elite year in and year out MAC school? And I think if they can knock off Toledo at Toledo, that's going to be one of those things where you mark down and say, okay, Coach Lembo has turned this entire program completely around from where it was when he picked it up 2 years ago. And I think if they're able to go to Toledo, a team that's pretty much always at the top of the MAC, one of the cream of the crop teams when you think of MAC football, if they're able to go there and knock off Toledo, that's taking this program to a whole nother level.
Game kicks off 8 o'clock at Toledo. The game will be on ESPN2, so turn down the volume on your TV and listen to the three of us on SportsLink Radio 91.3, WCRD, and WCRD.net. And teammates are kind of like a family. You go through your 4 years with the same guys, but what happens when you all live together? Well, Ashley Reed, Kelly Page, and Drew Adamson gave us a look at 4 Ball State teammates who live together in our opening episode of Ball State Football Cribs.
What's up, everybody? I'm Zane Fakes.
My name is Brandon Kish. What's up?
How's it going, guys? I'm Connor Ryan.
My name is Keith Running. Welcome to our crib.
Welcome to the living room.
All right, you guys are done here. We're going to go across the hall to the bedroom upstairs.
When you walk in my room, you probably first notice that it's made out of wood.
You guys think this room's cool? Come check out my room.
I just know it's old. This car shakes when it goes above like 60.
You guys don't gotta go home, but you gotta get the smoke up out of here.
Those 4 guys, definitely guys, we will be watching on Tuesday against Toledo. But Pat, let's talk about your player to watch. Who is it?
My player to watch is statistically the best receiver in the Mid-American Conference. It's Willie Snead. He's a guy that really good at burning defenders and getting the deep ball. Ball State's going to need a lot of explosive plays in this game against Toledo. Talk about that more later. But he's got to get behind his man, get that deep ball working, and if Keith Wenning hits him, Ball State's going to have a lot of success through the air. You remember 2 years ago when Ball State went to Toledo, Jack Tomlinson, a huge day at wide receiver. Willie Snead sort of taking over his role. I look for another big day from Willie Snead if Ball State's going to win.
Mine's also going to be a guy who's catching the football, but mine's going to be Zane Fakes. And it's because last year, Zane Fakes, didn't really play much of a role catching the football in this Ball State offense. But this year, he's shown everyone that he's starting to make more and more plays. He's a great possession receiver this season. He's, caught some touchdowns, which he wasn't used to doing last year. And he only had 1 catch last week for just 5 yards. But I think that, if they can get him to catch some of those little out routes that he runs after he blocks and stuff like that, that he could potentially have a big day as well.
Now, it's going to take a full team effort to beat a team like Toledo, one of the top teams in the MAC every year, year in and year out. But who do you look for to improve in this game?
My player to improve kind of has a big asterisk with it because I'm going to go with the quarterback, Keith Wenning, but here's why. Obviously, Wenning, a tremendous player, played pretty darn well against Army last week. Really, outside of the Clemson game, has not had a bad game all year. Easily one of the top players in the MAC. He doesn't need to improve, but what does need to improve is his deep ball. And Timmy brought it up earlier in the show. The past couple weeks, he's had Willie Snead wide open. Now, it's not an easy pass to make, but it's a pass that Keith Wenning is plenty capable of making. He's had Snead open deep on a few long balls the past few weeks that he's overshot. And if you go back to that Army game where Army hung in a while in that game, if you go back and say, if we could have a couple of those plays over and instead Wenning hits Willie Snead on those deep balls, the game probably is out of hand and Ball State probably wins in a blowout. So my player to improve is going to be Wenning, but more on his deep ball and catching up with Willie Snead when he beats his man, because we know Willie's going to beat his man. Keith's just got to get the ball to him.
Well, my player to improve is the exact same person. It's Keith Wenning for those exact reasons and a couple more. And he hasn't played bad at all, except for the Clemson game. That's against one of the best teams in the country. But to beat this Toledo team at Toledo, he has to play near perfect football. I mean, he has to, have everyone on his team really, clicking at the right time and really hitting all of his receivers. No dropped passes, and that's not his fault, but no dropped passes. When he has guys open downfield, he has to be able to hit those targets, and he has to limit turnovers. So I think he's going to be my player to improve, but he's really also a player to watch because if they want to get this W, he needs to play perfect on Tuesday.
And let's talk about getting that W. What are your keys to the game?
My keys to the game are explosive plays. Toledo, they make a ton of them. They lead the conference in explosive plays. I mean, they've just got explosive playmakers all over the field. So Ball State's going to have to match them offensively. And it's funny, Timmy, you brought up the point. These teams are almost eerily similar when you look at the two, and they really are. They are teams that have a lot of top-notch players at important positions: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, defensive end, linebacker. Both those teams have some of the top players in the conference at those positions, and that's what allows them to make the explosive plays. Toledo at home is going to make them. It's almost assured. Ball State's got to keep up with them offensively and keep in their fair share of explosive plays. I'm talking 25-plus yard passes, 12-plus yard runs, and a lot of touchdowns. You get the feeling if Ball State's going to win this game, they're going to have to win a track meet.
Well, my key is going to be turnovers. I think anytime you go on the road and you're playing one of the best teams in your conference, and it's going to be on national television, ESPN2, a big Tuesday night game and everything, I think you need turnovers. So if Ball State's going to win, they have to get to the quarterback. They have to force him to hurry up passes, get some interceptions. Maybe Freeman can force another fumble like he did last week, but they have to be able to limit their turnovers and force turnovers of Toledo.
It's an 8 o'clock kickoff at the Glass Bowl in Toledo. Turn down the volume on your TV, ESPN2, and turn up the radio with the three of us on SportsLink Radio 91.3 FM. It's now time for our What's Chirping question of the week. Remember, you can tweet a question at Third Down Chirp or hashtag TweetPete. We pick your question and answer it on air. You get a free Papa John's pizza courtesy of Third Down Chirp. And our question this week comes from at Zach McCracken. Will the bye week help or hurt BSU versus Toledo? We kind of hit on it earlier in the show, but you do get a couple extra days of preparation and some, as Lembo has pointed out, some extra days of rest which this team desperately needs.
And I think that's more important than the extra days of preparation. And actually, they might not have a whole lot more preparation because, as we mentioned, a couple practices have been canceled this week due to the weather. But for me, the big part of that is getting some guys who are banged up healthy. Now, it doesn't appear as if Dan Manick is going to play in this game, but you can't forget that he's a guy who they're trying to nurse back to health, so he gets a few more days to rest, does Dan. And Horatio Banks, they're hoping they'll have him this week after an injury. Maybe those extra couple days help Horatio get back, and it'd be really nice to see that scat back type that Horatio is back in the Ball State offense. So I think the big part of that question is having a couple extra days of rest, and I think it's really going to help. I think it's coming at a good time. You like to have your bye week later in the year because you have guys that get hurt. I think it's coming at a good time.
Well, at the end of the season, everyone's banged up. So an extra couple of days when you can go get more therapy and you can go see the team doctor and everything, that always helps. But the preparation part, that is a little important because you get 3 extra days to go in and watch more film, to go out there, and practice have been canceled, so it's limited, but to see their defenses in practice with the scout team and everything, what they're trying to do with certain formations. So the fact that players are banged up and they can get that extra help from the trainers and everything is big, but the preparation is also big, just those extra days of watching film and getting ready to take on a good team.
And it should be a great game. And remember, for the latest in Ball State news and stories, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Just search Ball State Sports Link. And if your question didn't get picked this week, there's always next week, but time's running out. So if you want a free pizza from Papa John's, remember to tweet #TweetPete or @ThirdDownChirp. Tweet us a question, and if you're lucky enough, we'll answer it on air. Always a good deal. So prediction time, Pat, and the last couple of weeks we really haven't talked about, but talk about a hot streak. Timmy had a huge lead in the prediction battle. Pat has come on strong, and he's now one win away from tying things up. Timmy, what's going on here, man?
I don't know. I think I got off to such an early lead, and I felt comfortable, and I got good, and I really let off the gas.
Timmy got into the prevent defense a little bit, hit him with a couple deep passes over the middle. All of a sudden it's close. I think we're tied if I win this week.
All right, Pat. Well, what is your prediction?
Unfortunately, I hope my prediction's wrong. I'm going to go Toledo winning this football game 38-35. I think it's a close game. Ball State definitely has a chance, but Timmy talked about it. Ball State's got to play near perfect football to win this game. I think this is the toughest game on Ball State's schedule outside of course, the Clemson game. But you look at the rest of the schedule, some of the big ones at Kent State, home against Northern Illinois. I think at Toledo is the toughest game on the schedule, and Ball State's really going to have to play well. Unfortunately, I think Toledo just has a little bit too much. At home helps. I'm going to take the Rockets winning 38-35.
It's always tough to go on the road in the MAC, no matter who you're playing and win. But when you're playing, probably the best team in the MAC on the road in the middle of the week, it's going to be tough. But I think that this Ball State defense is playing as well as they've played all season right now. The offense, the running game looks good. The passing game looks okay, but we saw what it's capable of with games like Kent State. So I think that Ball State, I think that they're going to be able to pull this out. I think it's going to be 31-28 Ball State. And like we said, this game is on election night, guys. If Ball State wins this game, I am voting Pete Limbo for president. If Ball State wins this game on election night.
He'll definitely have the Muncie vote if he beats Toledo and maybe gets 2 or 3 more wins and a bowl win specifically. So Pete Lembo 2016, I'm voting for him.
You can write him in. He could win in 2012.
He could win in 2012. I'll write him in.
He could win the Muncie vote, as we said. Should be a great game. 8 o'clock kickoff between Toledo and Ball State, ESPN2 game. Turn down the volume on your TV. I've hit it 3 times now, so better turn down the volume on your TV and listen to us on SportsLink Radio 91.3 WCRD. Ball State trying to get back to a bowl game and keep their MAC title hopes alive. And that's going to wrap up this week's episode of Third Down Chirp. Thank you for tuning in as always, and hopefully next week we'll have some better weather and we'll be back out at the stadium and be able to watch a little sunny football. So for everybody here at SportsLink, you can watch us every week on Fox College Sports nationally, Comcast Indiana, and WIPB locally here in Muncie. So for everyone here in SportsLink, thank you for watching. We'll see you next week. Hopefully we're talking about a win over the Toledo Rockets. And until then, go Cardinals.
Like something spooky for the week of Halloween for the Third Down Chirp for our what's the thing at the end?
Oh, the blooper?
Why did I just forget what it was called?
That's not like a special thing to the show. It's just a blooper.
Blooper. Halloween themed. All right, let's do this. I'm getting I'm getting restless.
We're getting
Never mind, we just had it.
We just had it.
I hate it. I'm getting restless. We need to get out of here.